Russian armed forces soldiers destroyed a Ukrainian drone with small arms yesterday in the Donetsk region. In one section of the Zaporizhzhia front, Ukrainian soldiers mistook the door when they entered a building occupied by soldiers belonging to the Russian Armed Forces 108th Airborne Brigade. Russian soldiers decided to use the building as a temporary staging point. They secured the building. However, 2 Ukrainian soldiers accidentally entered the building where the Russians were located. What happened, happened. Fiber optic drones and Molnia aircraft-type UAVs, 18th MSD operators destroyed a Ukrainian Armed Forces T-72B tank in the Kharkiv region by detonating its ammunition. The tank's fragments flew into the air.
Don't forget to leave your opinion about the video in the comments, subscribe, and like.
A Russian helicopter reached the location where Ukrainian armed forces soldiers were stationed in the town of Kirovsk. The building where a dozen Ukrainian soldiers were located was destroyed. Kharkiv region. Ukrainian armed forces personnel were monitored in their shelters by a fiber-optic connected FPV drone controlled by operators from the 41st Airborne Brigade, part of the 44th Army Corps. However, it turned out that no one had survived. In the first image, the FPV UAV operator noticed a Ukrainian soldier cutting the fiber-optic cable of another UAV and destroying it with a direct hit. In the second image, an enemy hiding in a wooded area from a Russian armed forces UAV attempted to retaliate. However, the UAV overcame all the bushes and neutralized the Ukrainian armed forces soldier. The Russians are tracking Ukrainian armed forces personnel and transport vehicles in residential areas with pinpoint accuracy. They then accelerate to strike the vehicles. Russian soldiers decided not to take unnecessary risks by checking the shelter for enemy soldiers and blew it up with an anti-tank mine. Don't forget to join our Telegram group. In the Kharkiv region, near the village of Sosnovy Bor, another 122mm 2S1 Gvozdika self-propelled gun belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces was destroyed by KVN FPV UAVs. The operator decides to fly from behind and deliver a critical blow to the vehicle. The final blow hits the cover of the self-propelled artillery unit. Flames are visible in the footage. The self-propelled artillery unit is destroyed. The Russian fiber-optic drone objectively observes the Lancet UAV's accurate strike on a Ukrainian forces 155mm American M109 self-propelled howitzer. The fiber-optic drone then carries out a second strike, destroying the howitzer. 136 ORB presents footage of UAV operations in the Kupiansk direction. FPV UAV pilots destroyed 2 pickup trucks, electronic warfare systems, a DZO, a barrel weapon, an AN-TPQ-50 radar, and a Kozak armored vehicle. The work of Russian operators was verified by objective cameras. Russian operators demonstrated their mastery in the use of KVN fiber optic FPV UAVs by destroying a BMP-1P armored personnel carrier belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces in the direction of Seversk. They crossed the barbed wire. They struck. They achieved target control. The Su-34 crew's precision airstrike on the forested landing strip with 4 FAB-500 M62 bombs equipped with UMPK. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement to TASS that fighters belonging to the Yuzhnaya military group destroyed a Starlink satellite communication station in Donetsk in the direction of Kramatorsk-Druzhkivka and Ukrainian armed forces infantry using FPV drones. Russian fiber optic drone operators are precisely detecting and destroying the vehicles of Ukrainian forces, soldiers attempting to camouflage themselves using civilian vehicles one by one. During the week, the Russians intercepted about 260 airstrikes by the Ukrainian armed forces over major cities in Donetsk. The nuclear-powered submarine cruiser Krasnoyarsk successfully hit a coastal target at the Kura test site in Kamchatka with a Caliber cruise missile from a distance of more than 1,100 kilometers during a planned exercise in the Pacific Ocean. This is how a soldier of the Russian armed forces blew up a bunker of the Ukrainian armed forces using an anti-tank mine in the Pokrovsk direction. Russian infantry throws explosives at the bunker of the Ukrainian armed forces and destroys the position. In the Sumy region near the Russian state border, a Ukrainian infantryman tried to operate a camouflaged ATV of the Ukrainian armed forces. However, a Russian FPV drone spotted what was happening and prevented the infantryman from using the ATV. The ATV vehicle was destroyed. The infantryman ran away from the scene. Objective image of the destruction of the bunker of the armed forces of Ukraine. Russian forces are advancing towards the Dnipropetrovsk region, destroying the defenses of the Ukrainian armed forces. First, a camouflaged mortar position of the Ukrainian armed forces was destroyed. Then, an airborne Baba Yaga heavy helicopter-type drone was shot down by a Russian FPV drone. Next, the Russian FPV drone shot down and destroyed the Ukrainian MLRS, which was camouflaged. In the Novopavlovsk direction, the assault groups of the center group of troops fearlessly attacked from the fields and with the help of a ladder crossed a deep ditch and entered Kotlyarivka. It is dangerous to run across the field in the middle of the day because you can easily be attacked by drones. But these fearless and brave Russian soldiers risked everything to complete this mission. Now it's time to cross the ditch and fight at close range. Don't forget to join our Telegram group. Russian combat groups enter a populated area near Pokrovsk and capture Ukrainian armed forces soldiers trying to hold the defense. (150th Division, 8th Guards). All-volunteer army destroys temporary deployment points of the armed forces of Ukraine. Such attacks have a negative impact on the morale and physical spirit of the infantry, which ensures the advance and superiority of the Russian forces. Leave your thoughts on these videos in the comments. Ukrainian Armed Forces mortar position destroyed. A reconnaissance mission from the North V Brigade advancing north of Chasiv Yar discovered a camouflaged Ukrainian military mortar position hidden among private homes. During further observation, a temporary mortar crew deployment point near the position and an ammunition depot located in a farm building were identified. The brigade's artillery immediately attacked the target, destroying the entire area where the mortar, ammunition depot, and enemy temporary deployment point were located. Zaporizhia direction. Reconnaissance units of the Southern Military District are skillfully uncovering and destroying enemy positions in the destroyed villages of Zaporizhia. Operators of the Russian UAV group are destroying positions with sniper precision, flying Novgorod Prince Vandal UAVs into windows and bunkers. Combat operations carried out by reconnaissance units of the 37th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade, part of the Russian Armed Forces East Group, from Buryatia, with the aim of destroying enemy infantry and equipment in the direction of South Donetsk. Russian FPV drone operators continue to destroy Ukrainian forces' equipment in the Krasnoarmeysk direction. Destroyed a pickup truck in Novopavlovka, a Humvee armored combat vehicle in the Muravka area, a shelter in the Novosergivka area, a minibus in Novopavlovka. As a result of the coordinated efforts of UAV operators and artillerymen affiliated with the 39th Guards Motorized Infantry Brigade, enemy artillery crews and equipment are being successfully destroyed, thereby preventing the enemy from rotating. A large number of pickup trucks have been destroyed in this direction. Ukrainian armed forces destroy a BBM near the village of Bohuslavka. Leave your opinion about night drone strikes in the comments. '98 Guards. Paratroopers of the 98th Airborne Division destroy an armed forces of Ukraine transport vehicle in the direction of Konstantinovka. Novopavlivka Settlement, Dnipropetrovsk region, VT-40 FPV UAVs destroyed a Turkish armored vehicle Kirpi and a Ukrainian forces pickup on the highway west of Pokrovsk. FPV UAV operators of the 5th OMSBR of the 51st Guards Army tracked and destroyed a ground UAV carrying ammunition and fuel generators to the forward positions of the Ukrainian forces. Don't forget to join our Telegram group. In the direction of Zaporizhzhia, near the village of Lukyanivska, fighters shot down an enemy tank defending in the woods, a very good indicator of the advance of the Russian troops. At this stage, UAV operators managed to fly very well in difficult conditions. The Russian armed forces hit positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in Mirnorad and Ivanpolye in the DNR with FABs. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that the fighters of the Southern Group destroyed a detachment of Kholodny Yar fighter jets of the armed forces of Ukraine. FPV drones, mortars, and towed howitzer units took part in the operation.